हम्म, हम्म, ओम ओम भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भृगो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहैः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ श्रुतिस्मृतिप्राणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ॐ त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव। ओम गुरुदेव भगवान शिव शंकर भोलेनाथ कैलाशपति महाराज की जय। भगवान व्यास जी महाराज की जय। शंकराचार्य भगवान की जय। स्वामी चिन्मयानंद भगवान की जय। स्वामी दयानंद भगवान की जय। स्वामी प्रबोधानंद भगवान की जय। माता पिता की जय। सभी गुरु देवताओं की जय। सभी गुरुदेव स्वामी शुद्धानंद भगवान की जय। साध्वी आनंद ज्योति जी की जय। सभी गुरु देवताओं की जय। माता पिता की जय। सभी गुरु देवताओं की जय। सभी गुरु देवताओं की जय। श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा। श्रीमद् भगवद गीता चैप्टर नंबर 6 and we will see verse number 3 where Bhagavan points out how karma yoga means for dhyana yoga. Karma yoga is doing karmas by giving up desires. When there is no desire, there is no phala ichcha, no desire for phala, and karmas done as an offering to the God is a karma. The person who does such kind of karma is a karma yogi. He does all the karmas. All the karmas a grasta has to do is done by a karma yogi, but as an offering to the Lord. All karmas, each and every karma is offered to the Lord as offering, and there is no desire. The desire is not for bhoga of phala. He is also a sannyasi. Bhagavan says he is also a karma yogi, is also a sannyasi, but not a purna sannyasi. He is a karma yogi. So when a jiva does karma as karma yoga, not with phala ichha, does it with no phala ichha, is a karma yogi. And when through knowledge the person renounces the karta, the doership of the karma, he becomes a sannyasi. Now Bhagavan is going to point, verse number 3, Bhagavan is going to point out how karma yoga is a means to dhyana yoga. Karma yoga is a bahir bahiranga sadhana, and dhyana yoga is antaranga sadhana. So now how karma yoga, the bahiranga sadhana, is a means for antaranga sadhana. Bhagavan is going to point out all this in verse number 3, which we will see now. Aruraksho mune yogam karma karanam uchyate yogarudasya tasya eva shamak karanam uchyate. Yogam, the contemplative disposition of the yoga meditation. Aruruksho munehe, aruruksha munehe, the discriminating person who is desirous of attaining karma yoga. Karanam means, uchyate is said, yoga arudhasya, the person who has already attained this yoga. Tasya, for him, sama, total renunciation. Eva alone, karanam means uchet is said. For discriminating person who is desirous of attaining the contemplative position of the yoga of meditation, karma yoga is said to be the means. The person who has already attained this yoga, total renunciation, alone is said to be the means. Arurukshu refers to one who wants to climb the mountain, who wants to climb or mount something, means to mount something, for which there is a method. For instance, a person who wants to mount a horse, which is not easy to do, must have a method. Similarly, there are those who are desirous of mounting a horse of yoga. Yoga here means dhyana yoga. Dhyana yoga, and what is means by karana for doing so, karma yoga. Karma yoga alone is the means, because you have to take care of the reason for the problem that are created in your mind. What are the reasons, the cause of for your problem? Your ragas and dveshas are the causes. They have to be taken care of for one who is desirous of gaining a mind that is not under the spell of ragas and dveshas. Karma yoga is the means. Karma yoga, therefore karma yoga is the means for sadhana, dhyana yoga. Meditation does not involve the will. A meditative or contemplative disposition is not created by your will. You cannot create. Although you can will yourself to sit for meditation, such a disposition happens when you are ready for it, and that readiness is what is meant by preparedness of the mind. Gaining this preparedness is not given over to the hands of time, but is created by living a life of a karma yoga. Meditation is not by will. You may sit for meditation, but meditation is by preparedness of a mind. A mind should be ready, should be prepared, and this preparation is created is by karma yoga. We see that the external means karma yoga for gaining moksha is not unconnected but to the inner means dhyana yoga. In fact, it is very much connected. It is a part of the whole thing. Karma yoga becomes the sadhana, the means for the person who wish to mount the horse of dhyana yoga, the capacity to contemplate. Once this capacity is gained by living a life of karma yoga, the person is called yoga arudha. Yoga arudha. Only then sama, sannyasa, gives up all actions, takes place. Karma yoga itself does not make a person yoga arudha. By living a life of karma yoga, the person first becomes contemplative. Then he develops a complete dispassion, detachment towards all activities that makes one a yoga arudha. Complete detachment only comes through knowledge. Sama here means complete withdrawal, total renunciation of activities. And since this can only happen through knowledge, knowledge is the means. Therefore, as sadhana for gaining moksha, knowledge is equated to renunciation, sannyasa, and which is why jnani, a wise person, is called yoga arudha in this verse. The yoga arudha did not become wise by karma yoga. He is wise because of jnana, knowledge. So the direct means for becoming wise is given here as sannyasa. There is nothing but jnana, which is nothing but jnana. On this particular point, this verse is often misinterpreted even through Sanskara. In his commentary, has made its meaning very clear that only by knowledge one can be free from all activities. There is no other way. In order to be a yoga arudha, a complete renunciation of all karma should take place. This is not a withdrawal from activity, strictly speaking, but a renunciation of activity in terms of knowledge. Knowing that one is not the doer, therefore total renunciation, sama, is to be taken as knowledge. Not renouncing forcefully, not renouncing activities forcefully. Renouncing activities forcefully will again lead to activities. Sometime or other, that will not help for dhyana. That will be a disturbance in dhyana. If renunciation is without knowledge, renunciation of karma is without knowledge, it is going to disturb in dhyana yoga. And if it is because of knowledge, there will be no disturbance. It will lead to absolute dhyana yoga. When does this person become yoga arudha? Bhagavan answers to his question in the next verse. One whose mind is not disturbed by anything attains liberation. Let us read this verse. See, reading is also, we cannot recite, at least we can read the verse. Yada hi nindrayartheshu, yada hi na indriyartheshu, na karma anushyajate, sarva sankalpa sannyasi, yoga arudha tada uchyate. What are the lakshans? Whose mind is not disturbed by anything? Yada, when he indeed, na, neither, indriya artheshu, with the reference to the subject, sense objects, na karmeshu, nor with the reference to the actions. Anusajjate is attached, tada, then sarva sankalpa sannyasi, the one who has renounced the cause of all desires, yoga arudaha, one who has attained liberation, Uchyate said, when one is attached neither to the sense objects nor to the actions, then that person is said to be one who has attained liberation, one who has renounced the cause of all desires. The person described here is one whose mind is not disturbed by anything. Such a mind enjoys dispassion and contentment. It is a resolved mind. With reference to sense objects, indriya artheshu, and with reference to action, karmeshu, there is no attachment whatsoever. He is not attached to the sense objects. And attachment is renouncing this attachment with the sense object is not forcefully. All actions, karmas, come under two types. As we seen previously, Vaidika karma and Laukika karma. With reference to both these karma, this person no longer thinks of himself or herself as the doer. In other words, the person does not have kartavya buddhi, a mind that thinks in terms of this must be done by me, doing which I am going to be better, my Lord. Only the doer performs action. A karma yogi, on the other hand, has this kartavya buddhi, the attitude that something is to be done by me and therefore I do it. This attitude itself is karma yoga. Here, however, Krishna is talking about yoga arudaha, one for whom doership no longer applies. There is no doership. In fact, the Veda does not address such a person at all. It addresses only the doer, the karta. It is similar to you calling someone by name. Hey John, please come here. Only the person whose name John will come here. Similarly, the Veda addresses you saying, oh karta, doer, do this action and you will get this result. Who will respond to this call? Only the doer, the one who has kartavya buddhi, the one who thinks I am the doer. So the person who takes Atma as the doer will respond, whereas the person who recognizes that he or she is not the doer will not respond to it at all. This is what is meant here by karmeshu anusajjate. With reference to karma, there is no attachment because the kartavya buddhi is not there for the person. When there is no kartavya buddhi, the person is not attached to or bound by the sense object or action because they do not invoke the particular thought that makes the person think that he or she will be different because of it. For such a person, there is nothing to be done. This is what we have earlier seen. The person who has renounced his doership does not have anything, does not have to do anything, does not remains. Nothing is to be done by him. In his commentary to this verse, Shankaracharya ji used the compound Nitya Naimaitika Karmya Pratasiddha Pratisiddha to refer to the various type of action the people generally do. As we have seen before, Nitya Karma are the Vedic rituals that are to be done daily, and Naimaitik Karma are those that are to be done occasionally. There are also Vaidika Karma to fulfill desire such as desire for progeny, health, wealth, heaven, and so on. These actions are called kamya karmas. Pratisiddha karma are the ones prohibited by the scriptures. The point that makes here being made here is that whether the action is scripturally enjoined or worldly in nature, there is no kartavya buddhi. This is to be done by me. For the wise person, because being full, he or she is not attached in any way to the sense objects or the results of action. The one who is not attached to the karma phala. Thus the person is a sarva sankalpa sannyasi. Sankalpa referring to the notion. I am the doer, karta, I am the enjoyer, bhokta. Free from these notions of doership and enjoyership, the person does not think that this is to be done or gained by me, so that I will be different or I will be liberated the whole world. I will save the world, which is the greatest fantasy of them all. Such grandiose ideas are simply erroneous notion about oneself, none of which the Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi has. Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi does not have any kind of these ideas, these notions. A person can only be a Sarva Sankalp Sannyasi when he or she does not have the notion of doership, kartatva. If this notion is there, then karma, desire will also be there. If the notion for karma is there, if the doership is there, then desire is also there. And wherever there is kama, desire, there is karma, action. This is the action that has to be done into yoga. As long as kartatva is there, the person is a karma yogi. When the kartatva is no longer there, there is nothing more to be accomplished by performing action, and whatever the person does is done due to prarabdha alone. This is why Krishna said earlier that in all three words there was nothing not yet accomplished that had to be accomplished by him, even though he was still engaged in action. Karma itself is not what binds you. It has no inherent hook that hooks you to do it. It is the notion that you will become something or accomplish something by performing action that binds you to the action. What a great revelation this is. It is the result of karma that bounds you. I will become someone. I will become greater. I will be more secure. Or all notions, fancies, sankalpas, and the person who is free from all sankalpa is called Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi. Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi. Please do not conclude that you should become a Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi. Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi is not an ideal. It is to be understood. It is freedom from sankalpas. A freedom that comes from knowledge that self is free from doership and enjoyership. The person who knows this is a wise person, a yoga arudaha, a jnani. Don't have to become something. Don't have to change just change the attitude. This is the whole. Changing the attitude right from the first step, that is right from the point you start doing a karma. Karma is started with the sankalpa. I have to do this to attain this. And if you are doing this to attain this, you are doing a religious activity or a ritual to attain Swargaloka, then there is a bhoktritvam, that I want to enjoy Swargaloka, so I perform this action. The attitude is to be changed. And attitude, see, everything is as one whole. So you have to understand. Krishna Bhagwan is actually talking about Sarva Karma Sankalpa. In this verse, giving up all action imply giving up all desire, since you cannot give up all actions unless you give up the desire that prompt them. And you cannot give up the desire unless you know, I am the whole. Knowing this, the doership is gone. Only then is the renunciation of all desires possible. So this giving up of desire, passion and activity is nothing but discovery of the Atma, of the self as whole. See, even to give up desire, you have to go through the knowledge. Only knowledge helps you. So knowledge will first help you in renouncing the desire. Then you don't renounce the karma. Karma is done, but the doership is renounced. This is how you keep renouncing everything. It is only through jnanam. A wise person does it. So keep on studying, keep on with this. Keep on going through the Shastras. There is no other way. You cannot one day decide that from today I renounce desires. I will do, but not desire. If you will not desire, then you will not do also. But why should not you desire? You cannot renounce desire without knowledge. So this is to be understood. You don't have to renounce, you have to understand. Renouncing will happen. Therefore, what should you do? This is explained in verse number 5 and 6. In detail, Bhagwan is going to explain this, and we are going to look into this. Let us recite. The self alone is one's benefactor and one's enemy. This is going to be very amazing. Udharet atman atmanam na atmanam avasadyet atma eva hi atmanah bandhu atma eva ripu atmana. Atmana, by oneself. Atmanam, oneself. Udharate, may one lift. Atmanam, oneself. Na avasadhet, may one not destroy. He, for Atma eva, self alone. Atmanah bandhu is one's benefactor. Atma eva, the self alone. Atmanava ripuhu is one's enemy. May one lift oneself. May one lift oneself by oneself. May one not destroy oneself. For the self alone is benefactor and the self alone is one's enemy. The verse makes it very clear that you have to save yourself. that you should not destroy yourself or allow yourself to be destroyed. It is a very big. Why? Because Atma, oneself, is a great helper, a great benefactor for you. In other words, you are your own benefactor. And who is the beneficiary? You. Therefore, you are both the beneficiary and the benefactor. Krishna goes on to say that you are also your own enemy. It means you can become a great friend, a benefactor, or an enemy to yourself. A person who is Yoga Arudha Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi has saved himself or herself totally from all that is undesirable. In other words, from the life of samsara. Just as one saves oneself from drowning by pulling oneself out of the water. In fact, all of a person's activity are meant only to save oneself. The person wants to become secure, to be free from all problems, including loss of money, power and health, old age and death, which means he or she wants to save oneself from insecurities. Thus, everyone is busy looking for his or her own safety. Whether we call it self-safety, self-security or self-welfare, there is no question that pursues the selfish or self alone. Selfish and self alone. Understanding the fundamental problem. Seeking an alternative lifestyle is not what is implied here. Rather, the person is seeking answers to some very fundamental questions. Certain questions arise in the person, however vague they may be, which tends to disturb the usual activity that people naturally absorbs themselves in. The question themselves gives the direction to one's life until the person comes to understand that he or she is under the spell of likes and dislikes, ragas and dveshas. To use the language of Gita, one begins to recognize that natural pursuit, swabhavika pravritti, that everyone engage in is out of these likes and dislikes. I like it, I want it, therefore I do it. These responses arises from raga dvesha alone. Within the particular sphere of reality, everything becomes right. Anger is legitimate, sorrow is legitimate, pain is legitimate. This is where we get confused. Where anger is legitimate, it is legitimate to get angry. Therefore, if someone says you should not get angry, you get angrier. Even if you do not get angry, you run into problems. Once you accept the legitimacy, you can move ahead without disturbing your natural activity. But when you begin questioning your activity itself, you question the very life you are living. Only when you really question, when the flame of inquiry is proper, can you come to understand the fundamental problem. There is a mature way and also an immature way of approaching this problem. And in the light of what we discover, there is something that can be called a prayerful life, a life of enlightened prayer, not a blind prayer. There is a prayerful attitude or disposition, which is Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga implies the acceptance or appreciation of Ishvara, the Lord, and living a prayerful life. This is what brings the capacity to being contemplative, meditative. Such a life creates this kind of disposition naturally, a disposition of which knowledge of Atma, oneself, takes care of itself. So it is very clear that because of Karma Yoga, one can gain jnana, knowledge, helping yourself. In these words, the word Atma refers to you, the individual who by nature is already in the ocean of samsara. You need not suddenly slip into this samsara. You were born into it, along with it. And how you get out of it? By your own will. Atmana. You turn yourself about, but you question yourself and your values. By questioning yourself, you re-estimate the whole value structure, and therefore there is about it that is confusing. All problems are primarily due to improper priorities. Therefore, we have to reorganize our value structure, and in the process, our priorities will become proper. This inquiry, vichara, into one's value structure is done by oneself alone. Atmana iva. It is an inquiry into right and wrong. What one is to do and what not to do. Because of this vichara, your vision undergoes a cognitive change. This is one stage of inquiry. The next stage of inquiry is also done by you. By your own inquiry, you appreciate your helplessness in certain situation. This itself brings about a prayerful attitude on your part. A given situation raises certain doubts in you. Later, there is an appreciation of Ishvara, and then there is a prayer. This makes a person vashi, one whose body, mind and senses are together, all of which is done by one's own effort alone. Going to a teacher to gain the knowledge is also done by you and implies an effort on your part. In all of these ways, you pull yourself up. This is why Krishna says, here the one's benefactor is no one else but oneself. Atma eva atmanaha bandhava. Do not look down upon yourself. To have been born a sansari itself is destructive. If your mind is not in order, if your value structure is confused, then your entire life and lives of those around you will be confused. Thus Krishna also says that you are your own enemy. When your own mind, Atma, your own will is abused, or when it is not used at all, then it is naturally becomes your enemy. It stands against you, it destroys you. Your mind is where all the notion, this or that will save me, originate. These ideas are indicative of a will that has been fooled by itself and by others. Because you allow yourself to be fooled, it means that the final fool is you alone. Because I am a fool, I can be fooled. I allow myself to be fooled. Therefore, I am my own enemy. What is the use of blaming anyone? I myself am an enemy to myself. Atma iva atmanaha ripuhu. Therefore, Bhagavan says, may one not destroy oneself. Atmanam na avasadyet. Sadayet. May you make use of the will and change, which does not happen without your undergoing some kind of inner revolution. This inner revolution is quite revolution. It is not creation of many conflicting ideas, rather a quite inner revolution that takes place in one way of looking at things, in one's understanding. Therefore, do not look down upon yourself is another way of taking the expression Atmanam na asadye, because to do so is to destroy yourself. In this process, you may sometime have to mother the child within you and thus take care of it. If you had not neglected as a child, then you have probably picked up some problems along the way. And who has to care for this child? Who is the friend of this child? You alone. You alone as an adult have to mother the child within. This is what Krishna was trying to convey when he said, may one lift oneself up, Atmanam Uddharet. The verse can be taken in an absolute sense, in that at every level one say, may one not destroy oneself. Atmanam na asadyet. May one lift oneself. Atmanam udharet. Since one has to take care of oneself at every level, in the final analysis, there is no other force, nothing external to you that can help you. Oneself means one's body, mind, sense complex. Karya Karana Sangatana. This Karya Karana Sangatana, along with the will, is both the friend and the enemy of the Atma. This Karya Karana Sangatana has to be nurtured, has to be taken care. No baby. In other words, you can either your own benefactor or your own enemy. To take care of yourself, not fall into. This means that become free from the samsara. Another person cannot become a bandhu, a benefactor for you. Only you can do what is to be done to grow or to mature within samsara. Another person may be helpful to you, but to get out of samsara, you have to release yourself. In fact, where moksha is concerned, the very person who was previously your benefactor could very well become an obstruction to you. Bandhu implies affection and friendship, which can also be a binding. Even though such qualities may be quite helpful to your emotional growth, therefore in the final analysis, in terms of gaining moksha, you are only one who can be a friend to yourself. And unless you become a friend to yourself, you become inimical, an enemy to yourself. It is you who has to put in the effort. You have to understand. So you have to put in the effort. You have to take care of your mind. You have to take care of Karya Karana Sangatana, which has the will, along with the will. Karya Karana Sangatana along with the will, so that they go in right direction. Further, Bhagavan continues, Bandhuratmanastasya yena atmevatmana jitah anatmanastu shatrutve vartatatmeva shatruvat. For that self who has mastered oneself by oneself, the self alone is friend of oneself. Whereas for self who has not mastered oneself, the self alone would remain in the status of an enemy, like an enemy. This we will see tomorrow. So you have to understand, who is to teach you? You yourself have to teach yourself. Others, the teacher can guide you. You have to do. You have to put in your effort. Your Karya Karana Sangatana along with the will. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnad Purnamudashyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Tat Sat. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Om Gurubhyo Namaha. ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।